Hi, I'm Nicole from Move America, and today we're going to be joined by Elle Hempen, who is the co-founder of the Atlas for Cities. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to speak to you.
Ditto.
So first of all, tell us a little bit about what you do and Atlas for Cities.
Yeah, happy to. So the Atlas for Cities is a free online community really built to help local government leaders make better decisions more quickly. It's essentially at its core a really easily searchable, curated case study database that aggregates how solutions are being deployed on the ground from the member community that is made up of thousands of local government leaders from across the country and all of their partners. And then around that case study database, we built the messaging and the community forum to help government officials connect more easily, dig into the solutions that they're finding in the case study database so they can learn from each other, share with each other, and really kind of facilitate that connective tissue. We are at the Atlas for Cities really part of the kind of everyday learning experience for local government leaders. We're part of problem identification and solution identification. They say, I've got this huge problem. I know somebody across the country has started to make progress against solving this. Let me understand kind of the range of options available. And that means that we have really unique insight into the hearts and the minds and the problems that individual local governments are prioritizing and individual government decision makers are prioritizing. And that allows us to not only provide really valuable information to our local government community, but on the back end, really track trends, predict buying patterns, and provide that kind of real-time market intelligence that's missing right now in this big, diffuse, $3 trillion plus local government market.
That's brilliant. And so your priority is making sure that public and private government sectors can all work together and use this data efficiently. So what issues are you seeing that arise the most, and what solutions do you offer that make this sort of possible?
Yeah, so the trends are right now a lot driven by where the funding is, right? The infrastructure bill came out. It's a ton of kind of once in a generation funding to invest in basically all the foundational challenges that government tries to deal with and solve. So we see a lot of interest right now across infrastructure, transportation, water, broadband. Obviously, those are really foundational investments that need to be made where there's a lot of deferred maintenance challenges. Our infrastructure has not been invested in really heavily in the last couple of decades. There's lots of reporting and data about that. And so right now, a lot of the focus is on really what are the new innovative ways to approach solving kind of core infrastructure challenges. And then I think cutting across that, we see lots of engagement and searching to understand how equity fits into that as a cross-cutting layer. So as they're making investments in broadband or as they're making investments in transportation, how can cities and counties and other government agencies do that in a more equitable way to really make sure that everybody is kind of getting the benefit of this huge opportunity and huge investment in communities. So that's what we're seeing the most of at a high level. Really specifically, I'll say we also, ever since COVID hit, have seen huge amounts of engagement on basically any tool that enables better citizen engagement. The kind of wall, or it shouldn't even be a wall, but the wall that maybe was up between residents and local government is crumbling, which is really exciting. I think governments are hungry to hear from residents about what they need and their priorities, and that service orientation is even more than it's ever been. And I think that's been something else just from across the board. There's never been more interest in some of those tools that really enable governments to understand in a real way how they can better serve their residents and their community members.
And you mentioned the bill that was recently just passed with regards to infrastructure and transport. How important do you think it is for federal government to have more involvement in these public sectors? Because obviously they're the people that can make things happen.
Well, from a federal government standpoint, they're the funders, right? So the fact that they're deploying money is hugely important, right? That's the biggest thing that they can do, is get money out the door. And what was really exciting about the recent funding buckets between the American Rescue Plan Act and now the infrastructure bill is they've actually left a lot of flexibility in the funding. They haven't been overly prescriptive on how the money needs to be spent or what it can be spent on. They've been more prescriptive about the outcomes that they expect the investments to create. And that's really scary, I think, for a lot of local governments, because lack of certainty creates a lot of uncertainty in a way that's a little bit scary for risk-averse governments, but it also creates a really great opportunity for cities to focus on the things that they really need to solve at the ground level. I think, the federal government is awesome for providing the funding, but most importantly, the way the bill is written really forces the solution investments to come from the bottom up and make sure that community is in fact driving how money is being spent, not the federal government from a top down. Because when the federal government comes in from the top down, we candidly see a lot of inequitable investments because they just are so far removed from the actual problems that a neighborhood has, whereas local governments really see that. And so I think what's the biggest opportunity here with the new funding is to be able to really focus at that micro level on how to make changes neighborhood by neighborhood, street by street. And as long as that kind of trend continues across the country, I think, again, huge opportunity to really see some transformational change.
And gender imbalance is one of the things throughout the whole community that it's an issue that we're tackling big time. And to see a company that was founded by 3 women under the age of 35, it's great, it's incredible. And so do you see more women getting into this in the business, into this, making into government work, into public sectors, into private sectors? Are you seeing it a lot more?
I think that, listen, I'm biased, obviously, but
Yeah.
I think women are oftentimes motivated to solve problems. Everybody wants to make money and be successful, but as oftentimes you see female founders that get into it, not because they wanted to be entrepreneurs growing up, but because they saw a problem and wanted to solve it. And that's really why Ellery and Angela and I came together, is we saw a problem and we said, there's an easy fix here. It's not easy to build and easy to execute, but it's a pretty straightforward fix. And how do you increase transparency in a currently not transparent market? And so I think that we are seeing more female founders. We have a GovTech, a Slack community. There's lots of female founders in this kind of GovTech space. And it's exciting to see. I think that, diverse voices are important to include across the board, whether that's gender, whether that's race, whether that's, economic background. I think having diversity at the table is always going to move the ball forward. And I think it's been exciting to see strong female voices leading companies, and also leading and stepping up in the public sector. We see strong female leadership across governments now, from elected to managers to folks that are actually on the ground kind of doing the work. So I think public sector has always skewed a little bit more white, a little bit more male, but I think we're seeing some change there because it's drawing in people that are problem solvers and aren't in it for the money. And so you see a lot of females lean into that.
It's absolutely great to see. And so finally, you are joining us at Move America this year. So what are you excited about for the event, and what can we expect to hear from you there?
Well, first of all, I'm excited because I've been to one conference this year, but it's been a while since we've got a kind of a bunch of smart, motivated, creative thinkers in one room. And I think when you do that, especially when you're bridging public and private sector, magic can happen. And so I'm really just excited to be in a room with a bunch of smart people talking about how to solve problems. And so I think that's just foundationally really exciting. And I think, again, there is never a better time to be talking about the topics that are going to be covered during Move America. We are, we've got this huge amount of funding on the table. We've got still some lack of clarity on how that funding can be spent and what it can be spent on, which means that there's a lot of green space right now. And so I'm really excited to hear from everybody in the room about kind of what are the big innovations that have been working, and what are folks really excited about, and what are folks worried about, so that we can be really that facilitator in dialogue between the public and the private sector about how are we actually going to make sure that this money moves the needle across the board.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at Move.
Absolutely. Thank you. Looking forward to it.